worshipradio.fame. Or follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Worship Radio INT. This is the future.
Good morning. This is the Marketplace Connection, and I am your host, Linda Hunt, and I thank God for those of you, my Saturday morning connectors, as I call you. I thank you for viewing in and listening in on all of the platforms, the SoundCloud, TuneIns, iTunes, all of that, Facebook Live. I welcome you today to the Marketplace Connection. And this is the day that the Lord has made, and we are so glad that He included us in it. And I just thank God for you, those of you that have been watching me over the period of time. And so we always try to bring you the best of the best information that we can that can help you, enhance you, and just thrust you into your next dimension. And so we have a wonderful guest today. But before I get started, I just want to thank my sponsors, Northland Chrysler Jeep and Dodge, right there at 14100 West 8 Mile in the city of Royal Oak. We just thank you for being our wonderful, wonderful, faithful sponsors. And if you are in need of a Jeep, a Dodge, a Ram, or whatever it is, they have the 2019 specials going on right now. You do want to go by and visit my friends there at the Northland Chrysler Jeep, Dodge, and Ram. And you want to see the manager, Mike, tell him that I sent you, that you heard it on the Marketplace Connection. And if you do that, I'll make sure that he gives you a good deal. So we just thank you once again, and I thank God for my guest that I have sitting to my right and to your left. I thank you, Miss Orletta.
It's a pleasure being here.
Caldwell, correct?
Caldwell, right. Yep.
Yes, well, thank you so much for coming today and all that you do. And I know you got another assignment after you leave here because
Right.
you're a busy lady going to school and teaching and working on your doctorate. And
Right.
so we just thank you for all that you're doing and you're beyond existing
Enterprise. Right.
B-E-E, right?
Right.
We just thank you for you taking time out of your schedule and coming to visit with the Marketplace Connection today. So tell my viewing and listening audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you said, I right now it's a lot going on. I'm working on my doctorate and getting a PhD from Walden University in nonprofit management. I work for Workforce Opportunity Services, where I teach workforce development classes at no cost to nonprofits who partner with us.
Okay.
I am the owner of Beyond Existing Enterprises, and we're a nonprofit consulting firm, and I also do a lot of community development projects through that. So right now working with the Community Economic Development Association of Michigan. It's a lot of acronyms.
Okay.
CDAM. I'm working with them on the payday lending costs. We're looking to try to see if we can cap payday lending and provide some consumer protection. So I do a lot under my umbrella of Beyond Existing Enterprises. Plus,
Okay.
yes, I work for
Okay.
Workforce Opportunity Services.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we just thank you. And, I know, like I say, you are busy. And so, you are passionate,
Yes.
About what you do in terms of the nonprofit entity and, teaching people what it is and educating and, helping those that are interested. And that's one of the reasons you are the first person that I've had on. That in the 5 years that I've been almost doing this, the 5 almost years that I've been doing the Marketplace Connection, that I've had about nonprofit. We've talked about business. My platform is built on the 7 cultural mountains, so we deal with government, we deal with religion, education, and all of those things. And so as far as the business entity, I haven't had anybody to talk about nonprofit. So that had always been something that I wanted to bring to my viewing and listening audience because I know there are people that I do run into that are interested
Right.
in starting nonprofit organizations. And there's so many myths out there about what nonprofit is all about. And we're going to be talking about some of those things so people can call you and get in touch with you and you can help them and learning how to go about it and doing it correctly.
Right.
Because a lot of times we do things and we don't have all of the information that we need. And so then it costs us time, money, energy.
Right.
It costs us all of those things because we don't have all of the right information.
Right.
So we definitely, are pulling on you today to give us some information. So let's talk a little bit about the CED.
Well, it's CDAM is one of the projects,
CEDAM.
right?
Okay.
Community Economic Development Association of Michigan is like a trade association for nonprofits and community development. Same thing as the nonprofit industry. And then we have a sister membership that I happen to be on the board. That's called the Community Development Advocates of Detroit. And we feel that we are the voice of the community. So
Okay.
those are two different. I just happen to work with them. CDEM, I happen to have a contract with where I work for them on the payday lending thing. But CDAT, I'm on the board. And I like both organizations because we don't go into a community and say, this is the way you're supposed to do it. What we try to do is provide technical assistance, but we listen to their voice and we try to professionalize it because, when you're working with the city and even grants and everything, you have to have outcomes and impact statements and all that. So it jives with what I want to do personally, making sure that neighborhood block clubs, community organizations are running at a professional level that they can actually advocate correctly for their neighborhoods and their constituencies.
Okay.
Right. I always say I have an archetype of what I'm thinking of. I always think of the 70-year-old black woman who just wants to keep her community together.
Yes.
And then when you pile on all the stuff that you need professionally, I want to make sure that she gets to the essence of her mission to keep her community together. So that's why I work with those two organizations a lot and enjoy it.
So all of the new things that are going on around the city and, all of the different, neighborhoods that are being revitalized, downtown, yes, but even in the neighborhoods going out, Livernois and some of the other places now, they're starting this West Village, I think, Northwest Village.
Right.
That's going to be done off of Wyoming and 7 Mile, and I don't know what the borders are. So does CDAM get involved in that type of
Well, if it's in
development?
if it's in Detroit, it'll be CDAD. And that's
Okay.
the Community Development Advocates of Detroit.
Okay.
They get involved. Actually, I live off of Wyoming and 7 Mile.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, and that's the
So
thing.
how do they help?
Well, like if you have a block club, one thing I know I personally have done, we have strong block clubs in District 2 of the city.
Right.
So we don't go in and say, hey, you have to have a community development corporation, a city. We say, what do you want? What are your needs? What are your concerns? And we make sure that they have the information and resources they need. If they want to set up a plan, they can contract with us and we come in and help them come up with a public policy plan or a land plan or a use plan, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So we make sure that one big thing that's happening in the city of Detroit right now is the ordinance is going to be updated and changed. So I had one community that wants to get more businesses in their area. So I've been going to the meeting to find out, okay, how is this going to impact you? Be a voice. Make sure I speak up if nobody else do. So that's the kind of things that they do for those organizations.
So is there any, help in terms of, what's going on right now in the 7 Mile Livernois area? And there is, construction going on. The businesses right now are being hindered
Right.
Because of the construction. I mean, great, place for all of the small entrepreneurs that are out there. So, I mean, are they able to get in touch with, you said it's CDAD?
CDAD, yes. They can get in touch with CDAD. Actually, it's funny. I've been talking to 2 leaders over there right now.
Okay.
So we're looking at some projects, the Michigan Main Street project, to see if we can revitalize it. I have to admit, Councilman McAllister has been very helpful.
Roy McAllister.
Roy McAllister. So he's my councilman too.
Right.
So he's been doing a lot of work with that too.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I know a lot of, I know some of the business people over there, and and it's such a great area,
Oh,
and,
I love it over there.
Yeah, and it's, and it's right there in the neighborhood. We love what's going on around the city, but this is a place right there in the neighborhood where people live, in Sherwood Forest, or,
Right.
right there, Palmer Park, or, Northwest Detroit, where they
Right.
can go and shop. And so it's great to see that going on in the neighborhoods where people can just either walk, catch a bus or whatever, they can bike. However,
Right.
and get to those places and do some shopping and support those small businesses.
Yes.
So we just, for you small businesses that are out there, we'll have her give a number and that you'll maybe be able to get in touch with CDAN.
See that.
And get in touch. Do you have the number or anything?
Well, I know their website is cdat-online.org.
Okay.
And
okay.
you can get membership information. I think they even, I'm not sure. No, it's a public policy meeting, their committee, they're meeting next week, but every other month they have a membership meeting. But if they go to cdad-online.org, they can find out membership information. The membership fees are very reasonable.
Okay.
So
okay.
that's
so
something.
they become a member
Right.
of that. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
And so,
Well, good.
yeah.
Okay.
That's the community development advocates of Detroit. That's the work they do.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So you have been involved in the community development for 30 years.
Yeah.
So tell us what, gave you the, the desire or the, inspiration to get, in that field.
This is the funny thing. I love this audience, my faith. I
Okay.
grew up in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the oldest black denomination in the country.
What church is it?
I grew up at Mount Calvary.
Okay.
A lot of my work has started at St. Stephen, where they used to
Okay.
roll skate in the gym. Now I'm with another denomination, but I used to run the camp. We had the denomination owned a camp in Cassopolis, Michigan, in Southwest Michigan. So I've always wanted to help the community. I say I can't complain unless I'm willing to do something about it. But professionally, it started at Camp Baber, Baber, and it's a beautiful camp. It's in Southwest Michigan, and I ran it for 5 years.
Okay.
And we used to have kids from Detroit, Chicago, and Indianapolis mostly come in for camp for a week of camping. I enjoyed it, and then we had like year-round camping, so we would have stuff like Christmas break, VBS. I had different groups come to the camp. Little Rock Baptist was a group that came every year, and I did that for about 5 years. And that's when the professionalism of nonprofits. I had a degree in public affairs, but I was still like, how can you make money doing this?
Right.
Yeah, even though you're hiring, you're like, I want to make big money. So I did go and get my master's in management. But from there, I was the only African American woman running a Christian camp in the country.
Okay.
So I got an offer to work in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Okay.
So my daughter and I picked up, and for 3.5 years, I worked for a Christian Camp and Conference Association. And that's where the seed of Beyond Existing Enterprises came, because it was during the time when Enron came, and then Sarbanes-Oxley. That was a big time in nonprofit sector's lives, because the IRS was changing the rules about how you do the 990 form. We can talk about that. And just transparency. And all the rules were changing. So a guy I considered my mentor was the vice president of finances at, we used to call it 3CA, Scott King. I noticed that as the IRS was pulling together the rules and making the changes, he kept up with those changes. And by the time the changes were implemented, our accounting system was aligned with the new rules. He didn't have to go backtrack. He kept up with it, and he knew what those rules were. And so we were in compliance. Unfortunately, I was thinking back to my people in Detroit, and I said, I bet they don't even know this happened. And so what happened was, one of the rules where you had, even if you had a small amount of revenue, it used to be you didn't have to file anything with the IRS. They changed the rules that you had to fill out this postcard, no matter how much revenue you had. It was the 990, I think, N form, and it's a postcard. And if you didn't fill out that for 3 years, you lost your nonprofit.
Your grant.
You lost your status as a nonprofit.
Okay.
And you had 3 years. So when the third year came, about 10,000 organizations lost their nonprofit status simply because they didn't take 15 minutes to fill out this card. They didn't know.
That's what I was going to say.
And another thing that I kept finding was happening, because as I was working with camps across the country and just hearing nonprofit stuff, a lot of people, particularly churches, were in trouble for payroll taxes, because the biggest myth out there is if you have a nonprofit, you don't pay taxes. The truth of the matter is, if you pay, you don't pay income taxes, but you may have to pay property taxes. You still have to follow the laws of your local government agency in your state. So I found a lot of churches that were in trouble with payroll taxes. And so that's where it started. It was like, I'm tired of my community finding out things much later than everybody else. And so my goal was to say, let me get information out. That's why I'm glad you came, because one of my foundational goals is let me get these myths out the way. I wrote a blog post years ago, and I got to repost it. It's about the 10 biggest myths about nonprofits.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about some of them. Well, listen, okay, now you got me stirred up.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
You got me passionate. I'm like, oh.
Okay, so, all right, so with the nonprofit, okay, let's talk a little bit about that. Tell us, what are some of the myths of nonprofits? And the one thing that you said about the, payroll taxes. And so nonprofit is actually a tax status more so than anything. Is that correct?
Well, let me go back to the beginning. A nonprofit, and actually that title is a misnomer. A guy that I love is Peter Breckenhoff.
Okay.
And he wrote most of his textbooks I used in school. He calls us a mission-based organization. Because if I say anything, and if you don't remember anything, my audience, when you start a nonprofit, you're starting a business.
Okay.
Right. So to be a nonprofit, first of all, on the state level, you have to be incorporated on the state level. And just like if you were going to be an LLC or you're going to be a for-profit corporation, you file as a nonprofit corporation. And in the state of Michigan, you have to have board members because you're incorporated. You can't just be a founder and I got a passion and run off and start a nonprofit. You have to have a board. And then there's certain things. And once you do the state level, now you're a nonprofit corporation.
In the state.
In that state. But you can operate just like if you have an LLC, it goes across all the other states. But you have to be incorporated with a state before you become a nonprofit.
Okay, so wait a minute. Mm-hmm. You just don't get an LLC and say I'm a nonprofit.
You cannot be a nonprofit unless you're incorporated as a nonprofit corporation.
Okay. All right.
And that's the key thing is, and Michigan is the fee is around $50, and and we'll talk about.
You get that through Laura too?
Laura, yes, it's under Laura. Laura's my friend. I love it.
Okay.
Okay, and then the second thing, so that gives you your corporation status. Now, what gives you your tax exemption status? Mm-hmm. That's the federal level.
Okay.
That's when you file. There's a form. It's about 28 pages, but I can talk about the two. It's called the Form 1023.
1023.
Right. And then there's a 1023 easy. Now.
1023
easy.
Easy.
Yep, that's what they call it. But you need to file that form to become what we call a 501c3.
Ah, okay. Now this is at the federal level.
And that's at the federal level through the IRS.
Okay.
And the reason I'm being specific about 501c3, because Section 501 of the IRS is the tax exemption part of the IRS code, but different organizations get different, you file under different exemption codes. Mm-hmm. But the 501c3, the one we typically talk about when we talk about nonprofit organizations, it means you're a charitable organization, and your activities got to fall under 7 things like scientific, sports associations, community, and I can't think of the rest of them. I just slipped them. Mm-hmm. But there's 7 specific categories.
Okay.
So what I'll say is, if you're a business association, that's not a 501c3. That falls under 501c6.
501c6,
right?
Okay.
So you have to be careful about your activities. Yeah. And when we're talking about your typical nonprofit organization, that's under the 501c3, and that's certain things. Okay. And it's really you got to be careful about that.
Okay. So the 501c6, is that just a regular, like a person that would just get an LLC?
No, you still have to be incorporated.
Okay.
If you're going to run a tax-exempt organization in the United States, you have to be
So this is still tax exempt. Okay.
Right.
All right.
I don't want to confuse everybody.
All right.
Okay. So we're going to be, when I'm talking in lines of when I'm saying the 501c3.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so you're considered a charitable organization. Now, at that point, you're saying that if somebody donates to you and you get your 501c3 designation and number from the IRS, That means any donations, those donations that come to you are tax deductible to the donor. And typically, a lot of people will not give you a grant or sponsor you, unless they're going to get a tax deduction. So that's why it's important to get the 501c3. Another thing is you can get discounts as a nonprofit organization through the post office. And there's other kinds of things that you can get through it. But the key thing is, what's tax exempt is your tax on your, if I was as an LLC, I have to pay taxes on my revenue and my profits.
Right.
All we're saying, if you're a nonprofit organization, the federal government and most likely the state is not going to tax you on your income. That's it. That doesn't mean that you don't pay your property taxes if the county says you got to pay property taxes, unless they have something where you can be tax exempt. You have to find that out. You can't just say, I'm a nonprofit, I don't have to pay taxes on that. That doesn't mean that if you have employees that you don't pay their Social Security and Medicaid. And that's one of the huge myths companies do. I got churches and we're tax exempt, and they don't pay their payroll taxes. And then here come the IRS. And then I can think of 3 groups off the top of my head that, we're like, okay, let's see what we're going to do. Because you got to pay those taxes, so we got to figure it out. And then you get the excise tax and all that.
Question. Okay, so the taxes that they pay, and when you say payroll taxes, that's state and federal?
And federal, and if there's local.
They have to take out for Social Security, they have to take out, just like any other business.
Just like any other business. You are in business, so some things you have to pay those taxes.
Even for yourself, if you're the only employee?
Yeah, I have, I own my organization is LLC. I have to pay taxes. I pay quarterly taxes because I'm an LLC. If I was a nonprofit, you're a corporation, but if your director's getting paid or you got staff, you have to pay those regular payroll, and you don't get a discount. It's the regular pay. That's why a lot of people say, I want to start a nonprofit, and I go, oh, okay. And I do. I spend a lot of time. Let's find out the facts, and I talk a lot of people out of it. Because I'm like, you don't have to start a nonprofit corporation to do good.
So, okay, nonprofit organization, you said is mission-based. So you should have some type. Are you dealing with youth? If I'm not mistaken, are you dealing with seniors? Because I used to be a part of a nonprofit or urban league nonprofit organization, and so do they have to have a specific mission that they're doing something in the community for a certain group of people?
Yeah, I'm sorry it slipped my mind, but those 7 things I said that the IRS said falls under the 501c3. You have to be doing those. What's going to happen when you fill out your paperwork? The state and the IRS are looking at your mission. And I teach a whole class just on mission statements, because what's tax exempt for you and your organization is based upon what you say your mission is.
Okay.
We're mission-based organizations. Other businesses, like we run, are for the profit, that we're profit-driven. Nonprofits, 501c3s, are mission-driven. And the IRS and the state wants to know exactly what is your mission, because that and that alone is what's tax exemptable for you and your organization. So if you say you're working to help alleviate poverty in like the Soho district, and you put that down as your mission, that's your mission. If you go to the next community over, theoretically, the IRS can come back and say that's not tax exempt and we need the taxes on that. So I teach a class really on make sure your mission is broad enough but narrow enough. You can't, used to be you can say anything that falls under the 501c3. They won't allow that. The IRS wants to know what the mission is, because that's what's tax exemptable. And you got to be careful with that. And I haven't heard any stories where the IRS come on down and say, okay, you beyond that. But there are occasions that they're starting to look at, what did you say your mission is? And that's what you're supposed to stick in, because nonprofits, we're doing this on behalf. The reason it's tax exempt is not because you're doing it on behalf of society. And that's very important. And we want to know. And that's why some people, when I say avoid being a nonprofit, because you want to be nice, because you say you're doing this on behalf of society. We're giving you the benefit of using those dollars that you earned for that mission.
Okay.
So we want to know, are you actually doing that for that mission? Right. So there's more paperwork. There's more scrutiny. It's public.
So just because you got a passion don't mean that that's necessarily a mission.
No, you, like I said, if you're not worrying about, tax deductions and you just want to be nice and feed people, be nice and feed people, and because here's another thing people don't know. When you start a nonprofit and you put the assets, so like suppose you start a delivery service and you're going to provide seniors meals and you put that van as the asset for the nonprofit, the IRS, part of being a nonprofit, says any assets for a nonprofit has to stay there for perpetuity. So if I decide I don't want to deliver meals anymore, I can't say, okay, I'm taking my car back. When you terminate your nonprofit, and I've been through a termination process, the IRS asks, okay, what are you going to do with the assets? Money, everything.
The desk,
they want to know.
All the furniture,
it has
everything.
to go to another nonprofit.
Wow.
So even if you sell the car, you have to give the proceeds to another asset. And they want you to line item and determine what you're going to do with those assets. Because once those assets are in the name of a nonprofit, they have to stay there in the asset for perpetuity. That's why when the church closed, typically they give the assets over to another church. You can't just say, hey, well, that's a wrap. Let's wrap, take our money and run. You can't do that. It has to go to another nonprofit.
So what are some of the other, just give us a couple other nonprofits. If a person wants to go into a nonprofit type business, is there another 501c something, another 501c without having to go into 501c3?
No, not if they want to get tax exemption. That's the code that you need to get your 501c3.
Okay.
And that's the thing. Be careful to say, if you want to start a legitimate, and that's why I started my organization, a legitimate nonprofit. That's the steps you have to take. Again, people have to realize you're saying that you're doing this on behalf of society. And as society, we want to do the due diligence to say that you're actually, because we're giving you a benefit. We're not making you pay taxes on your revenue. So we're giving you the benefit of using that money for others. So you have to justify what you're doing. And you have to have the money and show us where the money's going.
So you really got to kind of toe the line, people, right?
Right. And if you don't want...
Because you're going to be more scrutinized, it sounds like to me,
right,
a little more scrutinized with a nonprofit organization. Not to say that there's not scrutiny going on in businesses, but sounds like it's a little more scrutiny going on as far as the nonprofit to make sure that they are actually doing what they're saying.
Right. I mean, like, I have an LLC again. Like, if I walked out of here with my, I have a revenue. If I decide I want to buy a St. John's dress, that's my business. I'm a business owner.
Right.
As an executive director, I cannot go into the money and say I want to buy a dress because I own this thing and I found it and I have a passion and I think I should get something back. No, that's not legitimate. The only money I can spend is my salary. Or I can buy dresses if that's part of my mission for Girls for Prom. If that's part of my mission, I can do that. But you can't just do what you want with nonprofit funds. So that's why I hasten to say, if you're going to go into nonprofit and this is your passion and you want to do it correctly, there's just certain rules you have to follow.
They need to come see you.
Yeah, they need to come, yeah. And I do, and I don't mind.
Give them your telephone number and your
I can be
address.
reached at 313-829-0034. But the best place to reach me, because I'm always somewhere, if you go on Facebook, it's Beyond Existing Enterprises, and the quick tag is at BEELLC Detroit. And they can see me there, and they can ask me questions. 'Cause I'm easier. Okay. And then my email address is answers, ANSWERS @beyondexisting.com.
And she does answer you guys.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. That's how I got her.
Yeah. So, yeah, because that's my goal. I get sad because people have good hearts. I know they have good hearts. Mm-hmm. And I personally, one of my experiences was having to go back 4 quarters with payroll tax issues with the IRS and the state of Michigan because it wasn't done correctly. And I have visions of, sitting forms out, talking to the IRS saying, okay, and I got it fixed. Because people have good hearts, they don't know the rules, they don't know the laws, and they get themselves in a lot of trouble.
And then you get sued by the IRS.
Oh yeah, they're gonna charge you, and then there's the fees and the interest and the penalty payments, and it just quadruples, and your dream becomes a nightmare.
Do it right the first time.
Just do it right the first time. Set up the paperwork. There's another thing you on the state, if you want to solicitate funds. Now think about your nonprofit. So we're always raising money.
Okay.
In every state that you're going to be raising funds in, particularly the primary one you're in. So in Michigan, we had to file a solicitation paper with the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
So if you solicit funds and you don't turn in this paperwork, and it's free, it's a form. If you don't turn in that paperwork, the Attorney General can come after you. It's a protection for consumers. And this is something, too. All those people that say, I write grants, I do this, I do this. Mm-hmm. If you write a grant and you're not on the staff of the nonprofit, you're supposed to be bonded for $20,000 annually.
Say that one more time.
Okay. Any grant writer, independent grant writer out there,
okay,
if they're particularly in the state of Michigan, and I have a bond certificate, you have to be bonded, and you have to file with the Attorney General as well. So I'm writing a grant right now for a church. I'm going to hand them my form to show that I'm bonded. So when the Attorney General office sees it, they'll know, okay, she's bonded. And I pay for a $20,000 bond annually. And so you don't supposed to just be out there writing grants and not be bonded. And the state will check. And they will contact you and the organization. Another thing that I've done, too, I'm insured. So if I give advice that's just, and my advice, I'm not an attorney, but I've got insured, so my advice, I'm covered by insurance because I'm taking this seriously. And there's a lot of people out there with all the hype. Oh, I can make you this money, I can do all this.
Right.
And they don't, cross their T's and dot their I's. So you want to look for that kind of stuff, too.
So you just don't go get a grant writer just because somebody said that they can write a grant.
And they're going to get you a lot of money.
And get you a lot of money. So you get with someone, as she said, that's bonded.
Bonded. They have to be, and they have to file with the Attorney General office with the state of Michigan. So I have my paperwork, and, I can show you my bond and all that stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
So tell us the difference between a nonprofit and a not-for-profit.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Actually, again, you're in business, but a not-for-profit is basically saying that you don't take your corporate income, you don't pay for your revenue, your income. We pay income taxes as a business. Mm-hmm. Nonprofits don't pay that corporate tax. Okay. That's all it is.
Okay.
What we're saying is we're going to take that income and we're going to use it for the mission.
Okay.
That's all we're doing. That's all that's saying.
Okay.
And we're also saying if anybody donates money to us, it's tax exempt. That's all a nonprofit corporation is.
Okay.
That's
and
the
not
difference.
For profit.
The not-for-profit is the same thing as a nonprofit.
Right? Okay, because I saw that term and I wasn't real sure what it meant.
There's a lot of us in this sector, we don't like nonprofit. We really don't like not-for-profit because I'm going to tell you guys this. We have reserves. This is key, and people don't feel, and this is another thing I learned when I was at Christian Camp and Conference Association. They had $1 million budget. They had funds left over for the next year. They had money put aside for crises just like any other business would. You wouldn't spend up all your money. And so Peter Brickenhoff, again, he said that if you don't have reserves 7 out of 10 years that you're in business as a not-for-profit, mission-based nonprofit, you're not in business. How can you help people if you're broke and you can't keep money in reserves?
Come on.
And so you're not in business. And again, a nonprofit, not-for-profit, mission-based organization is a business.
So you can have money that's in reserve and left over and go into the next year. And okay.
My organization, I work Workforce Opportunity Services, has a reserve, a major one.
Okay.
Or you can't be, and we make, and if you're a true nonprofit, you make nowadays, because that's what I'm writing my dissertation on. What is a sustainable organization? So yes, I got a passion and I want to help everybody and I want to hug the puppies and love the children, but I can't do it properly if we don't have the right finances. So, just like any other business, if we're not pulling the revenue to serve the people, you may be gone as a staff member. You know, we make those decisions. We have to make cuts. You have to have a budget. I wouldn't work with a nonprofit that didn't have all of the business forms. You're gonna have to get an accountant. You need to get an attorney. You need to have some. What I love to do is strategic management.
Yeah.
I like to talk to you about how you're gonna raise your revenue. Forget that you're going to grant yourself. You're going to get grants. Here's the one thing. First of all, it's not that many grants. The government is not paying for what they used to back in the day. And the thing with grants they're restricted funds. You have to use that grant fund for what the grant is for. So if you have to pay your utility bill, you can't dip into restriction funds to pay for your utility. So you have to have some restricted funds. You have to have some way, and you can charge money for your services. Actually, WOS charges corporations for us to get, our young people into these corporations and through our program. Blue Cross Blue Shield is a nonprofit.
Right.
They charge fees. You can charge fees. A lot of people take like an LLC that they have, and that funds their nonprofit. But don't think you're gonna go in there and that's again. You hear these people and say you're gonna get. I write all these grants. Smile at them, and they can probably get you grants, but no, that cannot be the only source of your funding. Because if that philanthropy organization, that grantor decides that their mission changes or what they're granting is changing. I know a long time ago the United Way changed how they fund people, and some organizations were a wreck because they didn't fall under that premise anymore. What their focus and their mission, United Way's focus was, and so they didn't get grants anymore, and it messed up their budget. So you, like any other business person, diversification of your revenue stream, how you're going to do those streams, what happens if this grant is no longer available. Some grants are not there to keep you going for, time into it could be 3 years. So you got to start thinking about that stuff.
Okay, question. So, if you are an LLC,
yeah,
and you wanted to get a grant for your business, say advertising or marketing or some of the other things that you might need to have, a grant for. So, you can be an LLC. Can you get a grant, or get... is that considered the nonprofit part of your business? Okay.
No, if you LLC and somebody gives you money, it's not tax deductible for the donator, the person that donated to you. That's just some money they gave you. Now, that's again,
if you write a grant to say, for instance, okay, I want to get a grant because of the fact that I need to have some extra money to buy equipment. I need to do advertising, marketing.
That's a business grant or something that's totally different from the nonprofit.
Okay. So there are business grants. That's what I'm just trying to find out.
Yeah, there may be some people out there. Yeah, that's not my expertise, but I know of some people that get paid for that. Okay. But typically, if you're not, the only way you can get like a philanthropy grant, you have to be a 501c3, or you can get what they call a fiduciary sponsor. But the money goes, so for instance, I'm a neighborhood organization group. I just have a project. We're going to get a quick $20,000 to do something in the neighborhood. That's not enough to go run and get a nonprofit, 501c3 and all that. So you can work with another nonprofit who's willing to be your fiscal sponsor. They will get the grant. They will be in charge of making sure that it's used for the purposes that it was intended, and they'll do all that paperwork, and they'll give you the money. You don't control that money. They will, because they have the 501c3, but they're doing this on behalf of you. Now, that's what you can do. Like if you had just a quick project that you want to do, and you don't want to go through.
Does that person still have to be bonded?
Yeah. Well, they're a 501c3, so they can get that money. Most foundations are not going to give money to somebody who doesn't have a 501c3. It's just not going to happen.
Okay.
And most people don't want to donate to a place that doesn't have 501c3 because it's not tax deductible.
Right.
Yeah, so
exactly.
it doesn't help my bottom line,
Right.
Usually when we donate, we get a tax deduction,
right.
some type of tax deduction.
Right.
So if you're a group and you just want to do something, and you can write the grant, get a fiscal sponsor that's a 501c3, and then they can handle the accounting, and you pay them a small fee for handling all that work for you.
So even like with churches, even your, I guess if you're paying your offerings and tithes and things like that, they're 501c3.
Well, churches are slightly different. They're non. That's
Okay.
because of the separation of church and state
Okay.
thing we have in our country. All churches, you still got to file the correct way, but churches are tax exempt, but it's slightly different than a nonprofit. That's why a lot of churches have a separate 501c3. They call it their development corporation or their community, because a lot of foundations don't donate to churches because of the religious aspect.
Okay.
So a lot of churches get a separate 501c3 so they can be eligible to do the community work that they do, their community ministries.
Okay.
So they keep that separate.
Okay. All right. So you also help people with fundraising ideas?
Yes, I work with Biz Central. I signed up with them. So we have a lot of fundraising packages that I can show people what they can do. I do write grants.
Right.
I can search for grants, so I have those type of proposals too. And just know, if you're in a nonprofit, you're gonna be fundraising. It's just part of the nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some of the other things you do marketing and
Marketing. One thing I didn't talk about, that board, because the nonprofit, I had one group. We have a sense of looking at the executive director. Executive director is not in charge of the nonprofit. It's the board.
Okay.
And I do a lot of work finding the right board people, because what happens is, if you're on a board, you're so sold out for the mission and that you're part of the face of that organization. They may not see you, but you're the one in charge. Executive director gets their directions on how they navigate and implement the mission from the board. And that's, dependent, even if the board gives
the board
up
keeps you in line.
Right.
I mean, making sure you're doing, keeping your feet to the fire, more or
right.
less.
And if the board gives up their power to the executive director, that doesn't still mean that the board isn't the one that's in charge. And I've known of boards, you could have founded and that's why board development, that's why I was saying, that's one thing I do, is so important in who you get on the board and your bylaws with the board, so you don't get stuck with people that you don't want, and it's a lot of stuff that can happen with a board. But you can theoretically, even if you're a founder, get kicked off the board. You do not own. That's why nonprofits have to be incorporated.
So wait a minute. Say that one more time.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
If you are the founder,
if you're the founder,
the board can kick you off.
The board can kick you off based upon their bylaws or whatever. Wow. No one. That's the thing. You're doing this on behalf of society. No one owns a nonprofit organization.
Right. Okay.
And so, my favorite example is Save the Children. The board kicked the guy that used to be on all the time, and he was the chair. He got kicked out of his organization by the board. And it's perfectly legal, under the right circumstances. So don't think I started this, I ran it.
Right.
This is my passion. I can do what I want. Because I had a nonprofit that kept talking to me about, what about the founder? And I was like, what are they talking about? So I finally had that conversation with them, and we actually had because they were from all over the country, but I had a webinar with them. We had an online discussion because I was trying to explain to them, the founder is the executive director is the manager. He or she still have to do what the board says. And if they don't, they're gone. And I don't care if they founded the organization. It's not a thing. And a lot of boards give up their power, but if something goes on, the courts, the law is going to look at the board. And that's why, another thing, don't be getting on everybody's board. Be careful about what board you're getting on.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So, some of the other services, I want you to know some of the things that she does. This lady is so full of just information. And I mean, just some of the services that she performs for you, grant writing, research, exemptions, strategic planning. You talked a little bit about that. Incorporation. So, if a person wants to go in business and they want to incorporate, or
Yeah,
is
if
it
they want to
just, or is
start their
this
nonprofit, that's
they want it
incorporation.
right? Okay, okay. Now you deal strictly with mostly nonprofit. You don't deal with business LLCs.
Actually, since I signed up with Biz Central, I'm a partner with them. I can help you with for profit as well. Plus, I have a degree in management, master's
Okay.
in management.
Okay, all right. And capacity building, fundraising ideals, taxes, as she talked about, so important. Bookkeeping, marketing, graphic design, web development, consultation, resources. So teaching you how to get and go, after the resources that are out there, and giving you the information, and how to get the resources is so important. Grant writing, research, grant writing and research, and then fundraising ideas. These are all of the things that the Beyond Existing corporation does, enterprise LLC does for you. So give them your number one more time, Orletta Caldwell. Okay,
Right.
you do want to, because I know I have friends that I know that are either starting nonprofits or either they're desiring, and so she is the kind of person that you need to get in touch with. Get a consultation with her if you're looking to start or grow your nonprofit organization. She can help you. So give them
Right.
your number one
Again,
more time.
you can reach me at 313-829-0034. But the best place is Facebook. Go to Beyond Existing Enterprises, and it's at BEE LLC Detroit. I forgot to mention, because every day I have different articles about what's going on in the nonprofit field that's posted on my Facebook page. And if you message me, I will get back to you.
Okay. And so she also mentioned that we don't really have time to go a whole lot into it. Business mentors are key.
Yes. Find somebody who's. I have a mentor. I'm gonna give her a shout out. Phyllis Edwards at Bridging Communities, and I love her. She's over in District 6, and she's just what, when I think of an executive director, a person in a nonprofit, everything's at compliance. She does it correctly. She looks at the trends. She was just down in Atlanta looking at what people do with vacant land, what they're doing, best practices with vacant land in cities. She just gets in there. She learns. I've learned from her on how to build relationships with bankers, and that's what you want to do. You're in the business. We're in the 21st century. Some of the stuff has changed, and you got to start thinking the nonprofits. We're no longer that group that's sitting in the dirty office with the rickety furniture, hoping and praying to the Lord that we make it. We have business strategies. You have to have outcomes. You have to have impacts. You have to have collaborations and partnerships. And so Phyllis, she's my architect for that. I mean, I just type for that. I just love her. But that's what I'm looking for in businesses, and that's why I started this business, so you can do that as well.
Amen. Well, we thank you so much, Orletta.
It's an honor.
We thank you so much for coming to the Marketplace Connection. I hope you all took some copious notes and got a lot of information, because she is so, I mean, we didn't get through all of the stuff, but she is so full of information. So we just going to have her back again next year, because I know some of you out there that are looking to start a nonprofit or already have a nonprofit, and you just want to be in compliance and you want to do it right, so you don't have to face the IRS because of not paying taxes and different things like that. Okay, so please remember this, and look back over this video again. It'll be back up on replay, and you can get the information, take some notes. Okay, so I do want to, before I go again, I want to thank my sponsors, Northland Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram, right there, and they're open today. Okay, right there on 8 Mile, 14100 West 8 Mile, there in the city of Oak Park. They are my sponsors, and I just thank them so much for allowing me to take part in my program and allowing me to have them to be my sponsors. So I do also want to give you I want this book to get into your hands, okay? I want this book. The Amen Sister is my book that I wrote last year. I came out with my book, and I'm starting another one. So I got another project that I'm already working on. So we got to be busy. There's so much to do.
Yes.
So much to do. So Amen Sister is a book of hope, empowerment, encouragement for women around the world. It's to help those that are hopeless, give hope to the hopeless, faith to the faithless, love to the loveless, and life to the lifeless, positioning you to win because you are a winner. So we do want this book to get into your hands. You can hit me up on Facebook or Messenger and get my book. Barnes Noble, Amazon, it's all there. Get my book. It will be a blessing. So this has been the Marketplace Connection. It has been wonderful. We have had a wonderful time talking to you. Thank you so much again, Orletta. And next week we will be talking about insurance, car insurance, okay? I'm going to have a representative from, I think she's from Farmers Insurance, and we're going to have her here. We're going to be talking to Miss Sheila Hughes. You want to know what's going on next year in 2020. There's some things coming down the pike and some things that are already in negotiation for us as far as our insurance, which is the highest in the nation. So we want you to stay tuned, and we thank you again for this has been the Marketplace Connection. We'll see you again next week. Have a blessed weekend. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Hey, this is DeAndre Ford, and you're listening to Worship Radio International.